Hello there everybody, Terry Miles here. So we're going to take a quick look at the project folder structure for Unity. So I'm going to go ahead and launch Unity down here, and it comes up sign into my account. So just going ahead and sign in here, and you'll need to make an account obviously, so and then sign in. Now sometimes this goes blank, it doesn't come back, and you just have to restart it. Interesting thing. Okay, so here I am. I've in my opening start menu here for Unity. So what I'm going to do is, instead of loading a project that I've already got, I can go over here to the Get Started and look at some tutorial videos. Well, actually, just the introduction video, Welcome to Unity. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new project here, and I'm going to call it New Project, and I'm going to store this thing on my desktop for right now so that we can kind of play around with this and get a feel for what's going on. I'll leave it as a 3D project and go ahead and create this project. Shouldn't take too long to get this project made, and have Unity loaded up for us. So here comes Unity, and here's Unity. Alright, well, almost. Okay, so here I am in the standard, well, normal Unity. Now of course I've got this laid out quite differently. This is the way that I prefer it laid out. When yours loaded up, you should have, let's see, your layout should have looked like this when it loaded up. And I'll go ahead and clear out this one. So when you see errors down here, you can just click the clear button right there. Unless they're telling you something really important. In that particular case, that wasn't important. So what I did for my particular layout is, you can just grab these things, just put your cursor right over the tab there, and you can hold down the button and drag them to wherever you want. So you can kind of lay this out however it is you might want it to be. So you can see that. There we go. Maybe. And I'll even change this one over here. Instead of the 2-column, I'll go to a 1-column layout. That's just my preferred layout. Now, it doesn't mean you have to do it this way. You can, slap your inspector over there, like so. Wherever it is you prefer your stuff to be. So let's see here. Maybe I'll put my inspector down here like that. So you have lots of options here. I'll put it over there now. And you can just kind of keep throwing things around. You can even just make them completely floating. So if you have 2 monitors, you can put one over on the other monitor. A common thing to do with the game view here, for instance, I can just take that and put it on my other monitor. And then I can keep my game view always at the full size, which is kind of nice. Okay, so let's see here. Snap over here. It's being ornery. Okay, let me pull project out of here. Okay, then I'll pull this one over here. So I would strongly recommend that you just kind of play around with these. Just move these around however you want. If it gets just really weird and wonky, just come up here to this layout button and go ahead and do revert factory settings, and it'll bring you right back to the initial default that you originally had. So you can set this stuff up to be however you want. And the more you use Unity, the more you're going to end up having different layouts. For instance, as you get more involved you may have a panel for your animator, or a panel for your mechanim system, or a panel for various other panels you might want open for reasons. And as we go through this book, we're going to have a Playmaker editor panel that'll be open as well. Anyway, so things to be aware of. So this is my layout here. Now we have our scene over here, our basic console over here. Here's my project panel, which I moved. Here's my hierarchy, my scene view, and here's my inspector panel that shows me the properties for an individually selected object. Okay, and then there's my game view, and here's my scene view. Okay, so what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and let's save this scene. I'm going to go File, Save Scene As. Now I want you to notice where it's saving it. It's saving it to the desktop. Now of course I'm on Windows, so if you're on Mac, it's been about 10 years since I've used Mac. I know it's not called desktop, but yeah, there's a folder where your stuff is stored. Then I've got New Unity Project, which remember when I was creating my Unity project, I just left the default name as New Unity Project, and then I'm in the Assets folder. Everything that is available down here in your project folder, down here in this area, is going to be found in your Assets folder inside of your project. This is my project folder. So you can think of this New Unity Project right here, this New Unity Project Assets, you can think of that as being this project tab right here. In fact, that's exactly what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and save this scene. I'm going to call this test scene, like so. Okay, so now you see I've got a test scene down here. I've got a test scene up here. Okay, let's kind of take it one step further here. I'm going to go ahead and load up. Let's take a look at. Let's go into our desktop right here, New Unity Project, and here's our library project settings temp. Basically, don't worry about any of these. Inside my assets, here's my test scene. And this metadata, this is also not something we really need to worry about. Very useful if you're using source control systems and whatnot, which we're not going to be using. But so here's my test scene. Now, if I were to, let's say, make a new folder here. So I'll make a new folder, and I'm going to call this folder Scenes. Okay. And now if I come over here, notice I have a folder right here called Scenes. Pretty interesting. Now I can grab my test scene, and I can say I want to store that in my folder called Scenes. So I'm just going to grab it, and I drug it and dropped it into this folder called Scenes. So let's go back into Explorer over here, and notice my test scene is now inside that Scenes folder. Also notice that there is a meta created for my Scenes folder itself. This is keeping track of changes and things like that. So just leave those alone. Don't worry about those. So you can see my test scene was moved into there. So as this folder, this assets folder, is organized, that is how things look down here. So you can make changes here inside your project panel. You can make changes out here. Now, a couple things to note. If it's not down here in your project panel, it's not going to be in your file explorer. Notice my main camera, my directional light, which are out here in my scene, they do not exist down here. However, if I were to take my main camera and drag it down here, basically just make a prefab, something we're going to do later in the book, you can see that is now down here in my project view. And if I go to my assets, I have a main camera prefab. I mentioned it was a prefab, and there you can see it. So what we have in our project view right here is exactly what we have here. All right, let's take this another step further. Let me go ahead and save that. I'm going to close Unity real quick. And then I'm going to come back here in this New Unity Project. I'm going to rename this. So I'm just going to click this, rename that. Let's say we call this, I'm going to call this Book Project. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and start Unity up again, like so. So here we are. Notice I've got my Sancho, which is the final book one, something else I'm working on, and just the example project that comes with Unity. So I'm not going to create a new project. I'm going to open a project. So I'll select Open, and it went to my desktop, basically because that was the last place it was at. So I was thinking, well, maybe it's here. So I'm going to select Book Project. Notice down here it says Select Folder. It does not say Select File. This is a little bit different for us. We're used to, when we open things, that we're opening a file. Well, remember, in our project, when we're just looking at down here in the bottom right corner, our project folder corresponded to the Assets folder inside there. So it's folders, not files. So if I open this up, and the only reason I opened it up was to make sure that this had Assets, Library, and Project Settings. Those are the three things that are required to load a Unity project. Notice the temp folder is gone. That was basically only there while it was while Unity was running. Okay, once Unity was closed down, that went away. So I see that this is the correct folder that I want, Book Project. So I'm going to do a Select Folder, and here it is. It loaded it right up, right where we were. Okay, well that's nice. So we can kind of take our knowledge a little further. Let's close Unity out again. And I'm going to start Unity once again to show you that this time Book Project is populated right here in the most recent projects that we've loaded. So now Unity remembers, oh hey, you've got this project right there. So I can select Book Project, and there it is. It loaded it up. Alright, so that's pretty cool. But let's say that I decide I don't want my project here on my desktop because I decide that's not a cool place for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to another drive, and this folder where I like to keep Unity projects. I'm just going to drag book project over here, like so. Now notice it stayed here because I went to a different drive, so I'm going to go ahead and delete it off of that location there. So now it's not on my desktop anymore. Now it is inside of this other drive with inside the folder called Unity Projects. So if I bring up Unity again, Book Projects is gone. It recognizes that this folder is no longer there. So I can go back to Open, go browse to where it is that I just put it, Unity Project, Book Project, select folder, and here we are. We've got it back again. So now if I close Unity again and restart Unity again, there's my book project. Okay, so the point of all of this is that we can rename the folders. Of course, I can't rename the folder while Unity is open. I've got to close Unity. I can move folders around. It's really important to not be scared of your Unity project folder. But with that said, don't go in here and just do all kinds of weird, wonky things. I've seen many examples of students running into issues where they have several project folders embedded inside one project folder, and they just lose track of their assets. So when you've got your folder name, for instance, for the duration of the book, I'm going to be using this Sancho Panza folder because that actually has everything. So if I were to double click that, notice this has far more things in it. A Playmaker folder, it's got a Builds folder, it's got some other things that as we go through the book will make sense and we'll understand what they're for. If I go into the Assets folder, I've got more things in here, including a folder called Final Project, which contains all of the stuff that went into making Sancho Panza throughout the course of the book. So they're all stored right there. So if I go back to Book Project, all I need to worry about is what's inside my Assets folder, and just keep this organized. Whether I keep it organized in here or in the project pane of Unity is entirely up to you. Generally speaking, I use the project pane to keep things organized, and that's the steps that I'll be doing throughout the course of the rest of the book. So you'll see that done many times. But yeah, keep things organized. Scenes, models, textures, all that kind of stuff should go in its own folder. It's easier to find. It just makes your life easier. And if I ever decide that I want to move this, I can just move it to some other location and tell Unity where it's at. This also means I can grab this and throw it onto a USB drive and take it with me wherever I want to go. Okay, so that is folders and scenes. So notice that the scene is not the same as the folder. Let's kind of double check something here. Now, a common mistake with Unity is to go into your project folder and go find a scene and double click it, because you see the Unity icon, so it's like, hey, that's what I need. So I'll just double click this, and then Unity will load my scene and all of that. And yeah, it will, but it may not load your whole project, because essentially if there's an element that is in that scene that is not in the whole project, yeah, it might not show up. Let's see. Let me see if I can come up with an example here. Let me try to force something to happen here. So I'm just going to go ahead and let's make a camera. So I made a new camera. Let me get rid of this guy here. So I'm not using that guy. Okay, so let's save this scene like so. Alright, let me close Unity. Now this is one of those things. It's like many times it works just fine. Sometimes it doesn't. So if you just kind of avoid, so in this case my prefab still came in. So, but if you don't want to open by using scenes is really the point that I'm trying to get across here. Most of the time it'll probably work just fine, but the one time it doesn't work, you may not notice that it doesn't work. In order to open projects, always go through the Unity application and then go and, if you haven't opened a project already, go to the Open or Create New. Open, browse to where it is, New, create a new one. If you've already opened it, then go ahead and select it from down there. Another little piece of advice is don't open projects off of USB drives. I know it's tempting to just store it all on a USB drive, but as the project gets larger and larger, you have the potential of running into speed issues and data issues going back and forth, and I have seen projects get horrendously corrupted and messed up as a result of loading them and trying to run them from USB. It will just work better if you keep it on your desktop or in a documents folder or somewhere on your hard drive for all of your project folders. That'll just work better. Okay, so that's folders, scenes, and all that stuff. Just quick basic rundown of some potential pitfalls there. Any questions or comments or anything, feel free to leave a question below. I'll get back to it just as soon as I can. Okay, bye-bye.